7. Iconic American muscle cars that redefined power and performance. Muscle cars are more than just vehicles. They're symbols of American innovation, speed, and rebellion. These powerful machines roared onto the streets, their throaty engines announcing their presence long before they appeared on the horizon. The 1960s and 1970s were the golden years for muscle cars, but even later models from the 1980s carried the torch of American power and performance. Let's take a closer look at 7 of the most legendary muscle cars ever built, each representing a unique chapter in automotive history. 1. 1970 Oldsmobile 442, the muscle car that flew under the radar. The 1970 Oldsmobile 442 is often overshadowed by its more famous muscle car cousins like the Chevrolet Chevelle or the Ford Mustang, but it deserves a much bigger spotlight in the muscle car world. The name 442 isn't just a random number. Each digit signifies an important feature of the car: a 4-barrel carburetor, a 4-speed manual transmission, and dual exhausts. These features made the 442 a true performance machine. But that was just the beginning. In 1970, the 442 was offered with the 455 cubic inch V8 engine, which produced a staggering 360 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque. Impressive numbers for its time. The Oldsmobile 442 was a formidable competitor, capable of reaching 60 mph in under 6 seconds, which was an astonishing time, especially when considering the larger size of the car compared to its counterparts like the Chevelle or Mustang. One of the most interesting aspects of the 442's legacy is its racing history. James Garner, the famous actor and car enthusiast, took a modified 442 known as the Goodyear Grabber to the Nora, Mexico 1000 race in 1970, finishing second in its class. This off-road endurance race, which was a precursor to the famed Baja 1000, proved that the 442 wasn't just a street car, it was a competitive race car in the right hands. The car was built by Vic Hickey, a legendary name in off-road racing, and became a piece of racing history when it was later restored and sold to collectors. 2. 1978 Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, the movie star muscle car. By the late 1970s, the glory days of the muscle car seemed to be fading due to tougher emissions regulations, rising insurance costs, and increasing fuel prices. However, Pontiac wasn't ready to throw in the towel. Enter the 1978 Firebird Trans Am, a car that wouldn't just capture the attention of enthusiasts, but the entire world thanks to its starring role in the cult classic film Smokey and the Bandit. The 1978 Trans Am was one of the last muscle cars to emerge before the era of downsized performance. Pontiac took the iconic Trans Am design and paired it with a new, potent 6.6L V8 engine, increasing the horsepower from 200 to 220. While these numbers seem modest by today's standards, the real story was in its handling. Pontiac developed the WS6 package, a special handling option that included a sport-tuned suspension, wider 8-inch wheels, and quicker steering. These upgrades transformed the Trans Am into a car that wasn't just fast in a straight line, but could also handle corners with the best of them. Thanks to these performance upgrades, the 1978 Trans Am could outperform a Chevrolet Corvette on the track, which was a huge deal for Pontiac. It was one of the rare instances where a non-Corvette Chevrolet car couldn't keep up with a Pontiac in terms of handling. But the Trans Am's true claim to fame was its appearance in Smokey and the Bandit, where Burt Reynolds drove the car through high-speed chases, cementing its place in pop culture history. To this day, The T-top version of the Trans Am is still one of the most recognizable muscle cars ever built. 3. 1969 Ford Mustang Boss 429, the NASCAR legend. When we think of Ford Mustangs, we typically imagine cars that are sleek, stylish, and fast. But in 1969, Ford introduced a very special version of the Mustang, designed with one thing in mind: NASCAR racing. The Boss 429 Mustang wasn't just about style, it was a serious racing machine built to compete with the best. Ford wanted to enter NASCAR with a larger engine, and to do so, they needed a street version of the car to meet homologation requirements. That's where the Boss 429 came into play. Under the hood, this beast housed a 429 cubic inch V8 engine, which was designed to be raced at high speeds. Rated at 375 horsepower, it was built for revving high, up to 6,000 RPM. But the engine was so massive that it didn't fit properly into a standard Mustang engine bay. Ford hired Car Craft, a company specializing in vehicle modifications, to modify the Mustang's structure to make room for the oversized engine. While the Boss 429 didn't perform as well as other muscle cars at the time in terms of acceleration, its rarity and connection to racing history have made it a highly sought-after collector's car. With only around 1,300 Boss 429s produced, the rarity alone pushes auction prices well into the six-figure range today. Despite its slower street performance, it remains a legend due to its NASCAR lineage. 4. 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle LS6, the king of muscle. If there's one car that perfectly epitomizes the term muscle car, it's the 1970 Chevrolet Chevelle SS LS6. This car wasn't just another V8-powered machine, it was an all-out performance monster. The 454 cubic inch LS6 V8 engine was a beast, producing an estimated 450 horsepower, though many believe it was closer to 500 horsepower, and 500 pound-feet of torque. With this kind of power, the Chevelle LS6 could easily rip through the quarter-mile in a blistering 13.8 seconds, a jaw-dropping time for the era. It could also hit 60 miles per hour in just 5.4 seconds, which was lightning fast, especially considering that this car weighed over 3,500 pounds. The Chevelle wasn't just about straight-line speed. It also featured a beefed-up suspension and other performance features that made it one of the best muscle cars ever built. The Chevelle SS LS6 is often considered the pinnacle of the muscle car era because it combined blistering speed with excellent handling, a combination that set it apart from many other performance cars of its time. Only around 4,475 LS6 Chevelle were built, making it one of the rarer muscle cars out there, and it remains a highly prized collector's item today. 5. 1969 Pontiac GTO Judge, the ultimate street warrior. The Pontiac GTO is often credited with starting the muscle car revolution in the early 1960s. But by 1969, it was facing fierce competition from other manufacturers. In response, Pontiac created the GTO Judge, a more aggressive and performance-focused version of the classic GTO. Named after a popular comedy sketch from Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In, the Judge quickly became one of the most sought-after muscle cars of the 1960s. The Judge came with the Ram Air 3 engine, producing 360 horsepower. But the real excitement came with the option of the Ram Air 4 engine, which pushed output to 370 horsepower. This made the Judge one of the most powerful muscle cars of the time, offering blistering acceleration and incredible performance. The Judge was also a styling icon, with bold graphics, a striking rear spoiler, and a distinctive look that set it apart from other GTOs. Today, The 1969 GTO Judge is one of the most iconic muscle cars, and the rare Ram Air 4 convertibles are some of the most valuable, with only 5 built in 1969. 6. 1969 COPO Camaro. The secret weapon. The 1969 Chevrolet Camaro is one of the most beloved muscle cars of all time. But what made the COPO Camaro even more special was its stealthy nature. The COPO system, Central Office Production Order, was originally intended for fleet vehicles, but some clever dealers realized they could use it to build cars that were never officially offered to the public, including the COPO Camaro. 2 versions of the COPO Camaro were available. The first, COPO 9561, featured a 427 cubic inch V8 that was rated at 425 horsepower. But the real star was the COPO 9560, which came equipped with the all-aluminum Zeed L1427 V8, a race engine originally developed for the Can-Am racing series. Though rated at 425 horsepower, it actually made closer to 550 horsepower, a staggering amount of power for a street car. Only 69 ZL1 Camaros were ever built, making them among the rarest and most sought-after American muscle cars today. These cars routinely fetch prices in the $400,000 range at auctions, and their hidden power, coupled with their anonymity, there were no external emblems to indicate the ZL1 engine, makes them one of the most intriguing muscle cars in history. 7. 1987 Buick GNX, the turbocharged monster of the 80s. By the late 1980s, American muscle cars had taken a turn towards smaller engines, fuel efficiency, and technological advances. But Buick wasn't done with the muscle car game yet. The 1987 Buick GNX was based on the Buick Grand National, a car known for its aggressive styling and turbocharged performance. The GNX took everything that made the Grand National a performance powerhouse and turned it up to 11. With its turbocharged 3.8-liter V6 engine, the GNX produced 276 horsepower, which may not sound like much by today's standards, but it was more than enough to make it one of the quickest cars on the market. The 0 to 60 mile-per-hour time was just 4.6 seconds, making it one of the fastest production cars of the era. Buick only produced 547 GNX, and many were tucked away in garages by collectors who saw the potential in this powerhouse. The GNX's turbocharged V6 engine became a legend in its own right, and its legacy continues today, influencing the performance scene even in modern times.